Hi, I'm Mayor Margaret Quirk, and welcome to Service Georgina. Thank you for joining us again today. This is going to be our last show in this series, and I've been joined by many staff over the past number of weeks. We've learned about the fire department, we've learned about building, we've learned about libraries and the pool and the rock. It's been a fascinating journey, and I hope many of you have been able to pick up some key pieces of information. Today joining me will be Karen Stone from Economic Development. She'll be giving us an update. Karen was on at an earlier show in our last season, but everybody's always interested in what's going on within the Economic Development Department. But before we get there, I've got Winanne Grant, our CAO, here with me today. Welcome, Winanne.
Thank you very much, Mayor Quirk.
We're going to talk about the service delivery review, and I know it's a big topic, but we'll try to take it in chunks. So first of all, what is a service delivery review?
What is a service delivery review? Quite simply, and I like to put it simply, it's just an opportunity to look at what you do and how you do it. You could do a service delivery review of the processes in your own household, but municipalities like to formalize things and like to make them into projects that have a defined scope and a defined beginning and a defined end so that there's an understanding. So a service delivery review is a process where we look at the services we provide, what services we provide, how we provide them, should we be providing them, are we providing them the best that we can, could we be more effective, could we be more efficient, and just an overall deep dive into how the organization operates and how we deliver what we deliver.
So that can be internally and externally. It's not just one or the other.
That is correct. And when we originally embarked on our service delivery review, which was back in the spring of 2017, we anticipated that what we were going to be looking at was the external delivery of services, the services that we were pushing out for the community. We found, however, when we were going through what's referred to as the discovery phase, which is when you do your research and your consultation and you talk to your stakeholders, that as we were talking to our internal stakeholders, being the staff and the members of council and some other stakeholders that we engaged, that we needed to improve our internal service delivery.
Before we looked at the externals.
Yes.
If you're not doing things well internally, you need to do that first before you look at the external. So do most municipalities do a service delivery review? Is this something that's standard?
Some municipalities, typically larger municipalities that have broader departments within their organizations, have a continuous improvement mandate within their organizations. Informally, most municipalities have a continuous improvement mandate, but a service delivery review is when you go into a concentrated period of time and a concentrated effort to really examine, really look at service delivery review versus it being a carte blanche approach that you take generally over time.
So why did we start the service delivery review? What prompted us to take this look at our processes?
The management team has been saying for a number of years that they were aware of opportunities for improvement that we could seize upon, that they were aware of processes, they were aware of protocols, they were aware of policies that needed review, aware of review of service delivery A, but they didn't have time to get to do that review.
Because they were busy on day-to-day tasks?
Yes, day-to-day tasks.
So it's like in your own household, you want to get some things done, but they never seem to get done because you're always
You're on the hamster wheel.
Yeah, you're just going round and round trying to get things done.
Yes.
So how were we able to do this then? What did we do? What steps did we take to be able to give that dedicated time and effort into this review?
At the beginning of the year when we were going through the 2017 budget process, we identified dollars to do business analysis, to do specifically for a position at that point that was referred to as a business analyst. And the intent was that that business analyst was going to look at specific processes, but more from an IT perspective.
Okay.
Council approved those dollars in the budget, so the dollars were there. But at the time of the approval, I had said that I still wanted to do some more research about how those dollars would be spent. So having done some consultation with my colleagues and having explained the situation where we needed to just be able to get someone to get in and
dedicated time.
We decided to take the dollars from the business analyst position and channel them to a dedicated, it was a tri-party team that we retained, to dedicate it to those 3 people and say, here, take this project and please let's get in there, let's grab the bull by the horns and let's get the project done.
So they were the ones that led the discovery phase, reaching out to, members of council, myself, members of staff. And I guess this all goes back to our corporate strategic plan. And maybe we need to take a little step back and explain the corporate strategic plan and one of our goals and why the service delivery review fits in so well with the strat plan.
The service delivery review actually was, I would say, is driven by the strategic plan. So the corporate strategic plan council adopted last August, so August of 2016.
19, wow, we're really flipping back here.
Of 2016,
right.
So not this past August, a year ago, August. And that strategic plan identified 4 corporate goals, 4 corporate priorities. And those corporate priorities are the mandate that staff is to work by on a day-to-day basis. And one of those goals was corporate excellence. Excellence in organizational effectiveness, organizational delivery of service. So by having that mandate, very clearly in the summer of 2016, we knew entering the budget process in 2017 that we were to strive for and achieve organizational excellence. So one fed the other.
One fed the other. So I know that the strategic plan, if you look at our reports now, every one of our reports, when staff write it, they look at what does it achieve in terms of our strategic plan. So if members of the public, when they're reading a report, wonder why we're mentioning that, we want to ingrain it right into our day-to-day activities and know that this is what we're striving for all of our processes, all of our activities.
Exactly. There are a multitude of efforts that staff could work on a daily basis. The strategic plan says we're taking this bundle, and these are the ones that we want you to work towards.
So you talked a little bit about the steps in the review, and we talked about the discovery process. Where are we now in the process? Maybe you can step us through. We did the discovery phase, and then where did we move from there?
So discovery went through the months of June and July. There were interviews, research, review of policies, review of procedures, consultation to get the picture of the baseline, to see what how the organization was running, what the status quo was. We then, through the end of July, identified a short list, which was actually 30 plus areas of opportunities for improvement. Then we identified criteria and we evaluated all of those opportunities for improvement, and we ended up with 6 priority areas. We also ended up with 6 supplemental areas that would support the priorities. And we reported to Council in August of 2017 with what those priority areas were. The first priority area was an enhanced budget process.
Right, and we had Rob Weeder on earlier, and he talked about the changes that we've done for the 2018 budget and what's going to happen in 2019 and going forward. So that's getting those reports was fabulous to see the action being taken on the review, because it's not the kind of review that you wait till you're completely done. Because when are we going to be completely done our service delivery review?
I anticipate that once we do the 6 priorities, the supplemental 6, and the balance of the 30, which we are to report back with Council with what those priorities are, it'll be another 2 to 3 years.
Yes. So you wouldn't wait till you're 2 to 3 years to implement something that you discovered back in year 1. So as you find something, we're implementing and making that change in the process.
As soon as possible.
So the first one was the budget process. Yes. What were some of the other priority areas?
Then we moved into our financial policy framework. So there were a series of reports. All of our reports have been coming as progress reports.
Right, and that's the reserve fund, the investment strategy,
investment management, the reserve fund, how to deal with any annual surpluses.
Yep.
There's a whole framework, and they all fit together, and they're all pieces of the financial policy puzzle, and they all come together. I guess the culmination is the budget, but the budget really is the trigger that feeds council to make policy decisions about investment policy and surplus management.
Right, it's sort of the backbone for everything. So some of the other priority areas you mentioned: budget, we've got I think procurement, that's another one, IT, strategic plan. Procurement,
many staff came forward and said that the existing procurement bylaw, which is the bylaw that establishes the processes that they're to follow whenever they're making a purchase, the thresholds that they're to follow, the reporting structures and the reporting mechanisms, that bylaw was a hindrance to their productivity.
Because it's how old? It was early 2000s, was it not?
Yes, it's well overdue.
I remember review. When we did that before. Yes. So again, this review hasn't found a lot of necessarily new things. It was things that we knew. We knew that we had to go through some of these processes, but it's given us an opportunity to zero in on and to set those priorities and give somebody the task to actually put it down on paper and say, here's what we need to do, and here's the first report, here's the second report.
It's an opportunity. When I came to the municipality, one of the things that I had the directors undertake was a gap analysis. So they looked at the operations that they were responsible for. They looked at what they were doing and what they wanted to be doing, initiatives that they wanted to take on, improvements that they wanted to make, and identified that gap analysis, identified what they could do and what they wanted to do. And yes, and we're now able, through the service delivery review, because we have had the additional dedicated assistance, we've been able to get in and get at all of those things that we have all identified over time that we need to get at.
And how are staff adapting to some of these new processes? Are they embracing because sometimes change is a little difficult, and looking at internally sometimes can be a little bit hard, but how do you think staff have done with this?
The discovery process was absolutely fabulous. The number of staff that were coming forward, and we provided opportunities that they could come forward confidentially if they didn't wish to have a face-to-face conversation.
I'm going to have to wrap this up. This has been a fabulous conversation, and I thank you because I think there's been a lot of questions about the service delivery review. When we come back from break, I'm going to have Karen Stone, and we're going to get an update on the Economic Development Office and what's been happening there. We'll see you then. Hi, and welcome back. I'm Mayor Margaret Quirk, and we're back here at Service Georgina. Now I have Karen Stone with me. She's our Economic Development Officer. And I know, Karen, you were in our first series of shows back in the fall, but there's always so much happening in economic development. We wanted to have you to come back and give us an update. So welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor Margaret.
And tell us, we've got a new Business First program that we just passed recently at Council that you're going to be bringing back to us with some ideas. So maybe tell us what the Business First program is all about.
Yeah. Thank you. The Business program, it's a Business First program. We're just determining the final name for it. It's a program that really recognizes the importance of some of the larger business opportunities that come into the community, larger investors, and it really recognizes the importance they are to job creation and adding to our non-residential tax base. So we really want to have a program in place that allows us to bring together the resources so that we can perhaps expedite those development applications and those inquiries if necessary.
Exactly. So it's sort of a bit of a fast track for some businesses.
Yeah, what it is again, the criteria will be included in the program, and there's detailed criteria. What it will be is to put in place a single point of contact for those business inquiries. We'll give them first-hand information at the counter. So right now when people come in, investors, business inquiries, they're usually sent to the Economic Development Office so that we can really provide that face-to-face, real-time information. Certainly there's follow-up, but at least it gives them a friendly face.
Someone they can know and they can pick up the phone or send an email to. I'm thinking of when we had the presentation from the international school, the Vietnamese International School, and I think you've been working with them. So that's the same sort of idea.
Yeah, it is. And what happened when they first came to the community is we would arrange for senior staff to get together at a moment's notice. So it means let's dedicate additional resources, let's get the entire senior development team in the same room all at the same time, so that those investors know what they're up against from the get-go and get the information they need to make an informed business decision.
Yeah, exactly. Does this mean, though, that my residential building permit's going to take longer?
No, that's not the intent of the program. It's certainly not to put one before the other. What it is to make sure that the dedicated resources or additional resources are provided to those commercial development inquiries. And certainly this is a team effort. Economic development is not contained within the Economic Development and Tourism Division. It recognizes that really we need to work as a team, all departments, all divisions, because they all have a part to play in our economic growth and development of the community.
Exactly. So with the large commercial base, though, you'll develop the criteria to determine when that trigger happens for that fast tracking. But I know people would say, so, you know, let's not slow down my pool permit. So that's good to know. We just had when Ann Grant on talking about the service delivery review. How does this fit into that whole process?
Yeah, good question, because this is just one piece of the puzzle that our CAO was speaking of. It's to refine our service delivery for what's called the ICI sector, industrial, institutional, commercial sector. And you spoke about the pool permit. Again, that is a building permit, and at the same time, we've been putting into place the Business First program and some of the other service delivery initiatives. The Development Services Department is also putting into place policies and procedures to make sure that we're streamlining those processes. Right. So the Development Services Department has undertaken a whole exercise to look at how to develop more efficient and effective processes so that pool permit certainly gets processed in a timely manner.
Because I think now we have a planner that's there's a planner at a desk type of thing. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so they've instituted a planner a day program where they assign a planner to do some counter work so that when somebody comes in, they get to speak to a planner up front. They don't have to just leave a message. They will be directed to one of the planners, whichever one is taking on the task for that day.
Which is great, because a lot of times the feedback I've heard at times is it's hard to get an answer back. I want to find this information out, but that person doesn't, you know, how do we drop everything to help that person? But if we've got a planner at the counter to be able to answer those questions immediately, that can really help to speed things up. And it goes back to our service delivery review and wanting to have that excellence in customer service. We want people to go away saying, I got fast service at Georgina, and wow, that was a great experience.
You know, we want people to have that face-to-face experience. That goes a long way to improve our customer service delivery, absolutely.
Exactly. Now, one question I get asked repeatedly out in the public is about the business park. Now, let's clarify one thing right off the top. Who owns the business park?
Those lands that are subject to the first phase or the current applications that have been before council are privately owned. Yeah. So the municipality doesn't own any of those lands.
And maybe describe for the viewers just where the business park boundaries are, where they are.
Yeah. So they, the north end of the business park is the Maskinage River, approximately the Maskinage River, and those lands that are on the east side of Woodbine Avenue.
So across from Zayre's, across Walmart.
Absolutely, right down to sort of the crest of the hill before you go down to the intersection at Woodbine and Ravenshoe. So it's approximately 500 acres. Mm-hmm. It's important that it's the lands north of Glenwoods Avenue that's approximately 200 acres. Those are the lands that were approved for an industrial plan of subdivision and have a zoning bylaw that speaks to what the individual uses should be on those lands.
So that's what we did that in 2016. So we have a draft plan of approval that the owner is working through those conditions of approval.
Yeah, so it really hasn't been that long. I know the lands have been designated
for quite
some time, but really, council, it hasn't been that long since we did approve a zoning bylaw, again, to speak to the individual uses that would be permitted on those lands, and the draft plan of subdivision. So with the draft plan of subdivision, there are a number of conditions that have to be fulfilled by the owner so that he can register the lands and eventually sell the lands.
And do the servicing. There's a lot of work that has to be done.
There's a lot of work that has to be done. There's road infrastructure, water and sewer infrastructure, all the utilities. All that has to be done really before we can get a shovel in the ground and get that first end user on those lands.
Now, when you mentioned employment lands, maybe give the viewers an idea of what is meant by that. Is that having a Home Depot over there? What type of businesses are we looking at, and how did we decide where to place those businesses in those lands?
So really, those employment lands are what we call for employment generating land uses. They are for manufacturing firms, they are for commercial office spaces, they are for hotels, they are for perhaps conference centers in association with a hotel, some institutional uses, really industrial malls, the type of land uses you see in Newmarket on Harry Walker Parkway, for example. That gives everyone a good understanding of what those lands are ultimately to be used for.
Like along the Woodbine corridor, we would have what sort of uses there as compared to maybe the interior, or the other boundary is the 404 extension.
Yes, the 404 extension, correct. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to see sort of the prettier, the prestige industrial uses, employment uses on the exterior, because that's what you're going to see as you drive into our community. So you're going to see office buildings, perhaps some industrial uses, but they're not those that are going to require outdoor storage. Typically, we want to keep those uses that require outdoor storage or maybe a little less, less aesthetically pleasing. We're going to keep those interior to the site and make sure that we really have done a lot to do in streetscape enhancements along Woodbine Avenue. It's our intent to keep beautifying that streetscape as you enter up Woodbine Avenue and come from the south.
So we want to watch, though, the amount of retail use, for example, that we allow. There might be an accessory use if you have a hotel and they want a small retail store or a restaurant as part of it, but we're not looking at putting the retail because, correct me if I'm wrong, we have plenty of opportunity on the other side of Woodbine for those retail and restaurant, big box types of opportunities.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. We do have on the west side of Woodbine Avenue, that's where you're going to see the big box develop. So on the east side in the business park, we have zoning bylaw provisions that actually restrict commercial uses to a certain percentage and make sure that they're accessory to one of the industrial or office uses that are going to exist there.
And we're trying to do trails and things through there as well, so it's all part of, if anybody wants to see the plan, that they can see the layout. Things can shift, but there is sort of a development area plan that's draft approved. Now, we were saying earlier, there's draft plan conditions. So those have to be fulfilled by the developer, and maybe explain what we're trying to do to assist in that, and what are we doing in the meantime?
Yeah, so we've met, senior staff have met with the developer on a number of occasions, and we are in constant dialogue with him and his consultant, because what we'd like to do is certainly look at opportunities to assist him with the fulfillment of the draft plan conditions. So we've looked at, for example, the Business First program that we're coming up with. That will assist him in fulfilling the draft plan conditions. We dedicate additional resources to help him through that process. We've also been discussing other financial opportunities that will assist him in some of those upfront costs in getting the land serviced and ultimately to market.
And certainly we do have other lands that may be available to develop. It's going to be some time, it sounds like, before the business park is, before there's a road going through there. There's a lot of steps. But are we working with other business owners to try to assist them as well? Yeah,
so one of the things is we want to make sure that any policies and programs we develop for the Keswick Business Park in terms of incentives or the Business First program that applies across the community.
Right, and we have our community improvement plans
And
as
we
well.
have our community improvement plan. So one of the things is the Business First program and any financial incentive program that we look at, we want to ensure that it not only applies to the Keswick Business Park, but it applies to the town as a whole, because we recognize there are other opportunities across the community for investment.
Right, exactly. So we've got to make sure we, you want to attract new business, but you want to retain the current business.
Yes.
And I know your staff are great at coming out to business openings. I see Sean at the openings as well. You're there at times when you can make it. So I think we're trying to encourage business to come here, encourage business to expand and add to our tax base, because we certainly need that to be able to thrive and grow as a community. And I know you're a small department with just yourself and two other people?
There's a total of 3 of us, as you said. Sean Columbus, he's our Economic Development Officer, and Christina Liu, she's our Administrative Assistant. And they're getting out of the office quite a bit.
That's great.
To introduce themselves to the community.
Yep. I'm going to have to cut you off there. We've run out of time. We could spend all day talking about this, but I just want to thank you for coming out and giving an update, and I want to thank the viewers for tuning in over the past number of weeks and watching the shows, and I hope you've learned things. If you need more information, go to georgina.ca, and I'm Mayor Margaret Quirk, and I've been happy to bring this information to you about the various departments here in the town. Thank you very much, and hope you gain some good information.